Hi, everybody. Welcome back to that Eurovision site, Eurovision with a Slice of Life. We are once again continuing on our series where we looked at the internally selected artists for Eurovision 2024. And for today's video, I'm actually joined by someone who's from that country. And of course, we're talking about Australia because I got Liv from Aussievision with me. How you doing, Liv?
G'day, g'day, g'day.
Okay, then. So if you don't already know, we're of course going to talk about Australia, and they chose Electric Fields for this year's competition, and Electric Fields will be participating with one Milkali, one Blood. So can I just ask you? Let's just go straight into it. Liv, thoughts on the selection?
I absolutely love it, right? We've been hoping that they would be chosen for Eurovision since 2019. Every poll that Aussievision has ever run being like, which Aussie artist do you want to see at Eurovision? Electric Fields has always either won or been second, essentially, since then. So this is a really exciting selection for us. And, there's some great representation here. Zachariah is Indigenous, and we have queer representation as well, which is really important in Australia at the moment. We had a referendum last year that basically was to try and give the Indigenous population a bigger voice in Parliament, and it failed. So, there's been a bit of a strenuous time here, and I think it shows a lot of, coming together. It's quite literally in the song title as well, coming together and putting things like that aside. But the actual reception in Australia has been really good. Really, really good. Like, actual Aussie fans are really excited. We're really proud. And I know it's been a little bit mixed online from international fans, but what's new for Aussies, can I just say? Like, Voyager last year, when it came out, Eurofan response was not great. I don't care. I have receipts. I know you guys are lying when you're like, I always loved Voyager. Oh my God, Kate Miller-Heidke. Yeah, when she was on that funny little thing at Australia Decides. Yeah, I saw the vision. No, you didn't. You're a liar. So this happens to us every year, honestly, as Aussie Eurovision fans. And even in the lead up to Dami, it was very split. There were people who were like, this is the best thing ever, and people being like, oh, it's a really beige, boring pop song. So this isn't new for us. So I think this
Mhm.
will ride or die on the staging and the concept.
Yeah, I think for me, like 5 years. And can I just say I love that even though SBS has not used Australia Decides for very like for a few for like 2 years now actually, and then people who have done Australia Decides are still going on to represent Australia at Eurovision. And I'm very, very happy about that because I know that, it's been a bit like, people are like picking things different, but the fact that, familiarity within fans is there. So that's one. And second of all, like Electric feels like, look, Kate, I have to like applaud this. Like Kate had the package. So of course Kate had to go in 2019. And the fact that, Electric Fields are finally getting their shot at this. Very, very great. And the fact that, okay, I've seen on my time it is great. And there was that little bit of like, what's new? You're gonna get that for every song. Like, agree to disagree, but I disagree. Like they're fun. They're fun. I really like this. But moving on. Okay, so Electric Fields will be participating with one Milk Cali, one Blood. Can I just ask your thoughts on the song? Because obviously the difficulty with this is they're always going to be put to the standard of 2000 and whatever. So, you know, your thoughts on that, basically.
Yeah, I think when you actually listen to the two songs back to back, you can hear that One Milkali is much more rich in production. It sounds actually like a much more finished package, and you can hear that over those years they have really improved overall in production and that kind of thing. 2000 and whatever, also, I was in the crowd that day. I was on the front of the barrier and I absolutely lost my mind. So I totally did ride that wave of emotion, and I can totally understand why the fans are, absolutely obsessed with it still. But I think if you didn't know that performance existed, you would think of this much more favorably. And I also have to say that I don't think the music video that came out when it was dropped was necessarily the best because it was a bit distracting for a lot of people. One of my team members, Craig, kind of described it as kind of trying to what, like you walk in and your parents are both kind of like nude and you're kind of like, I don't know what to do here. Like it can be a little, I understand the concept. I think the concept absolutely lovely. I totally understand. I just think the execution and being stared at in that way distracted from the song. So I think a lot of people, once they actually heard the song by itself, it started to click for them more. So I think this is a great representation of Australian music. We obviously have Indigenous instruments in there. It's something that sounds like it could be on Triple J here, which is like a indie radio station that is much beloved. And it sounds to me, when I listen to their music, like it's a lot like Voyager. They've managed to distill the best parts of their style and kind of extract it in a way that it works for Eurovision whilst maintaining authenticity to themselves and originality and all that kind of stuff. So I think from that point of view, this is a really, really special entry and has a lot of quality about it.
By the time we're recording this, actually, it's actually way past obviously Australia's announcement and the national final season, and I've looked at the semi-final, and it stands out very well. I think for me, like, of course, you're always gonna have the comparison with 2000 and whatever. Fine, understood. You're a fan, but if you're looking at this, it's looking very different to what we are having this season when you're having a year where there's a lot there's kind of no middle ground a bit. It's like you're one extreme of pop banger, fine. One extreme of sadness, like okay, sad ballads, but like Electric Field just sits in the middle just right where I think it could, you know, it could stand out very well on the night itself. But looking at it, I think like I agree with you. It's the production. You've seen how they've grown as artists, and they're still sticking to their roots, and like which we saw in 2000 whatever, but still keeping on like making a bit more of a modern like twist, like reinventing themselves, and I think that worked very well. But looking at it, how I think I've touched upon this briefly, but how do you think this will do in Malmo?
Well, I think, the semi-finals, the hurdle here. Australia actually does do okay in the televote, particularly in semi-finals. I think Montaigne's a bit of an outlier because she wasn't actually there. We weren't competing, having apples with apples. Let's not talk about that. Isaiah wasn't in the top 10 of the televote, but he also had one of the worst vocal performances we've ever seen at Eurovision. So when you talk about normal performances vocally that are there and actually having a chance to stage it properly, we always do okay in the televote, and we're up there in that top 10 of a semi-final. And, Voyager won last year. The audience that watches semi-finals is different than the ones that watch the finals. And we know that, anecdotally, Australia does typically do a bit better in the televote of a semi-final, which is great when there's a 100%, televote semi-final. I honestly think in this year's competition, now that we have all the songs, I think you're totally right in the way that this sits in a very different musical space to everything else in the competition, right? If you want your pop girlies, you're spoiled for choice. There's a lot of things that are going to be cancelling each other out, whereas this really does sit in its own lane. We've been told from SBS that they have some very special staging coming. Like they seem very excited about it. And we do know that there will be some Indigenous art by Zachariah somehow incorporated into the performance, which I think is absolutely fantastic to have that representation out there on stage. So I think this definitely can make it out of the semi. Am I worried? Yes. Until you see staging, you're never going to be like 100% happy, I feel like, as an Australian. We all stress. But I think in the grand overall picture, I think at the moment, yes, we could get out of that semi-final.
Yeah, I think for me, obviously, for us Euro fans, we have 2019 to see that with the performance and stage presence, we know that it won't be a problem for Electric Fields. Like we know that they can perform, they can get the crowd going, and it will be a fun party in Malmo Arena, and everybody will be jumping around. But my main question is like, how do you think this will do overall in the competition? Because I know that they will definitely make it out, considering what we've just talked about and the fact that this stands out on its own. I think they'll have no problem, and with all of the things that are changing recently. But like, what do you think of your overall prospects are if they make it out of the semi?
Well, I hope it's a slam dunk into that final, Tim. But if they're in the final, I think there aren't that many songs this year, honestly, that have super strong jury pitch that are actually going to make it out of the semi in the first place. So if this can actually get to the final, I think this actually has a lot of jury appeal. We know Australia generally does pretty well in the juries too, and Zachariah does have some very unique vocals that I think could grab attention here. So not only do I think we get an okay televote in a very televote friendly year, let's say. There's a lot of really eye-catching televote performances. I think we'd get an okay televote, but I think the juries could really, really come for this where they might not come for other ones. So I think honestly, best case scenario for us, perhaps the lower end of the left-hand side. You know, worst case scenario, perhaps we make it to the final and, you know, we drift out to the 20s. That happens, you know, but I think the biggest win for us always as Aussies is getting into that final, you know, being there is a big honour. It's obviously a lot of fun as an Aussie going to Eurovision, actually seeing the Aussie entry in the final. So that is, you know, fairly conservatively where I'm sitting at the moment with our prospects.
Yeah, I think it's always. I mean, you're always Australia's always talked about Eurovision anyways. To be like, why are you here? And I'm like, just don't ask because you're gonna be here for about 20 minutes and you've already missed the other songs. But but yeah, but for me, I think if it gets to the final, I think that jurors are meant to be looking at this in all spectrums, and I hope that, that is the case if they do make it to the final, and I think that it could stand out very well. But, you can't really tell these years on how things will go on, but for me, I think it would definitely make the final. But rounding things up, like what do you think the fans should look forward to when Electric Fields comes to Malmo in May, you think?
Well, I think if you've ever kind of looked at things like Indigenous artwork, you know that there is this very beautiful, unique style that could
Mhm.
be brought to the stage that could be extremely atmospheric and amazing. And from that point of view, I'm really excited to see visually what they're doing here. They are so much fun. I saw them play last year in Richmond, and oh my God, I was just absolutely loving it. So just even having them on the ground and hopefully at a few pre-parties or something like that, I think they're just going to be able to bring a lot of energy and fun to Eurovision. And I think just number one, having that amazing Indigenous and queer representation from Australia on stage and sending a duo. There's not really much duo representation at Eurovision this year. So I think there's a lot of really unique qualities that they're bringing, and I'm really, really proud and excited to see them.
Yeah, something unique and different. And I totally agree. And finally, the main point is 5 years they're getting fed, they're getting their food. That's all that matters. But
They're
anyways,
going to.
yeah. But anyways, that takes us to the end. I'd like to thank Liv for joining me for this video to talk about Australia's selection. Where can we follow you guys on socials?
We are Aussievision Net and we are everywhere. And if you love hearing Aussies yak about Eurovision and our accents and humour, then check out the podcast in particular.
Okay, then. And for us, if you like this video, thank you very much. But first of all, give us a like, subscribe, and push the notification bell to be one of the first people to find out when we have a new video. And as Liv said, we're everywhere at that Euro site, but mainly Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, Threads, and Blue Sky. But thanks very much, guys, and we'll see you guys in the next one.